We are looking at the Gospel of Matthew. In this portion, we are going to be transitioning from the end of Matthew chapter 14 into Matthew chapter 15. Remember, when you read the Gospels, that the chapter and verse breaks are not original to the text. The chapter breaks come long after the Gospels were written. And that's sometimes important because we can pay too much attention to chapter and verse breaks. They do not reflect necessarily the intention of the original writer. Matthew chapter 14, reading from E.V. Rue's translation, verse 34. So they crossed over and made land at Gennesaret. The people of the place, recognizing Jesus, sent out all around the countryside and fetched to him all that were sick. Those begged him only to let them touch the tassel of his cloak, and all who did so were saved. Some doctors of the law and Pharisees from Jerusalem now came to Jesus and said, Why do your disciples violate the traditions of our forefathers? They do not wash their hands before their meals. People come to Jesus for a variety of reasons, and not all of those reasons are good. Notice in the beginning of Matthew chapter 15, the religious leaders are coming to Jesus. One of the groups of people that come to Jesus are some of the religious leaders. They are there to challenge the authority of Jesus. If they can successfully challenge his authority, then their authority remains intact. In every age, there are and will be people who come to Jesus to challenge his authority. You see, if you can defeat or discredit his authority, then you strengthen your position. Political entities through the ages have challenged the authority of Jesus by persecuting the church. Then there are the intellectuals who come to challenge Jesus, his claims, his authority. The point is, if you can defeat Jesus, then you are without a rival. Secondly, we are told that Jesus set up a MASH unit. If you're of my age, you remember the television show, and you remember that a MASH unit was just an abbreviation for a mobile army surgical hospital. Understand, in the ancient world, there were not medical clinics, hospitals, there were not the medical services available as today. So the fact that Jesus could heal attracted crowds. Now, that is a bit of a stretch, but we are told that the people brought the sick to him. And all of this, it's easy to gush over how Jesus was compassionate to these people. He was this, but did these people really want Jesus? I would say to you that many of those sick and many of those who were helping the sick to get to Jesus were not all that concerned for who Jesus was. They were coming because they knew that Jesus could heal. They were coming to Jesus to have a need met. You see, people come to Jesus for healing, addiction, or some people come to Jesus seeking a spouse, get involved in the church. There are a lot of single women. Who knows? It is not enough or good enough to simply come to Jesus so he can meet your perceived need. The third group that come to Jesus are the crowds that flock to Jesus, but in the midst of that crowd were those who saw and perceived that there was something more to Jesus. You can think of the disciples of Jesus who came with Jesus and were there as Jesus was healing. There were all those people who were seeking to learn more about Jesus. People who felt that there was something to be had from getting to know who Jesus is. In the midst of the crowd, it wasn't just all takers that day, in that sense of just grab a need to be met. There were people there looking to learn from Jesus. In a sense, Jesus' ministry at times was like panning for gold. The old prospectors would take a pan, dip it down into the creek, grab some gravel from the base of that creek, and then use some water and clean out the gravel. And the hope is to get a few flecks of gold in the base of that pan. You get rid of the unwanted gravel, and then you get some gold. That's what the crowds were to Jesus. Jesus knew that not everyone coming to him wanted to be a disciple, but Jesus knew in the crowds every once in a while he could find some gold. The fourth group that was there is the group that was in the shadows. This is the group that we will always find in the church. And this is a group that is always there. The group that comes to follow Jesus for a time and for a season. Don't discount the fact that everybody who comes to Jesus will not remain with Jesus. We have to understand that there will always be people who will follow Jesus for a time and for a season. And this is important because we in the church need to see that part of the way we grow the church is through attrition. We need to let go of people. We think of somebody like Judas Iscariot as a classic example. He was there that day. There might have been other disciples who were in the boat of Jesus at that time who would fall away. We must allow that there are people who find in Jesus something real for a time and then turn away. So, in every day and every age, there are crowds of people that come to Jesus. Some to challenge authority, some to meet a need, some to find Jesus as a savior of life, and some who are sincere at first but fall away. Yes, the crowds come, but the crowds must be more than just crowds. They must become disciples of Jesus.